And it's a very good morning to the Gelding on Thousand Guineas Day at Caulfield, Gelding.
Good morning, Professor. Good morning, listeners. Yes, the new Thousand Guineas at Caulfield, Professor. Normally this race is, well, they've moved it around a fair bit, the Melbourne Racing Club at the moment. Traditionally was on a Wednesday, the second day of the Group 1 on the second day of the Caulfield Cup Carnival. They then moved it, of course, to the first Saturday with the Caulfield Guineas. And now they've moved it again, Professor, to create this meeting, which is normally at Sandown and Sandown Cup Day.
Well, no Sandown today, Gelding.
No Sandown today, so we presume the Sandown Cup will be next week, Professor. But look, they've moved multiple races. The Melbourne Racing Club, in their wisdom, they've moved the 1,000 Guineas to today. They've moved the Sir Rupert Clarke Stakes, which was normally held on show day, Professor. It's had many, many names. So interesting.
Yeah, group racing returns to Caulfield, Gelding. There's 3 Group 3s and 2 Group 1s. And as you said, the 1,000 Guineas is the feature race and closely followed by the Sir Rupert Clarke. Gelding, 10-race program. What's happened?
What happened to Flemington, Professor? The Spring Carnival, the Pinnacle, how many races did they have that day, Professor?
I don't know, Gelding. You tell me, how many races did they have that day?
Well, I think we had 39 for the 4 days of Carnival, Professor. Oh, no, 37. 3 lots of 9 and 1 of 10. So I have noticed in race 2, Professor, they've slotted a benchmark 84 and have cut the city prize money to 80,000 for that race. So, yeah. Oh, well, less said about the Melbourne Racing Club, the better, Professor.
Yeah, the first at 12:20, Gelding. The tracks are good for. I'd suggest that track watchers keep a weather eye on that because it could well be upgraded to a good 3, depending upon the weather. How is the weather in Caulfield South, Gelding?
Looking out the window now, Professor, we've got a nice blue sky, a few clouds around, but not a lot of wind, so it should be no excuses, Professor, today for horses. Nice conditions. Let's hope the track plays fairly, Professor. So looking at horses, I think that may be, on pace, Professor.
Well, with the rail in the true position, Gelding, we can hope for an unbiased track.
Well, let's hope so, Professor, because as you know, that is our biggest bugbear. But let's hope so.
And what are your 2 best bets for today's races at Caulfield, Gelding?
Well, Professor, I'm going late in the day. First of all, I have to have a bet. As you well know, Professor, we've got to have a bet in the main race, don't we?
Yes.
And the 1,000 Guineas, we always try to put the listeners into somewhere there, and we hope the listeners have had a very good couple of weeks, Professor.
Yes, Gelding. We might talk about that a little bit later in the program.
Okay, we'll go there a little bit later. But Professor, I like race 7, horse 3, a horse called Skybird. 3 starts for 3 wins, Professor. You can't do much better than that, can you? This horse, look, probably goes against a little bit of what I was talking about. It settles kind of midfield, backish to midfield, but it's got a fantastic turn of foot. This Extra Fear 3-year-old filly, as I said, it's won a maiden at Ballarat, then went on to win a 3-year-old benchmark 64 at Bendigo, and then was very impressive last start at Moonee Valley when it shot up on the inside rail and charged home brilliantly to win at Moonee Valley, Professor. So, look, I think this horse is up and coming for Mitchell Freedman. Bo Mertens take the ride. Bo Mertens rode his first Group 1 winner at Caulfield in the Toorak Handicap over the mile. So this race at Caulfield over a mile, let's hope he can strike again. But very, very interested in Skybird. Professor, roundabout the $4.50 mark. So I think I would recommend to viewers that you back it each way. I'm certainly worried about number 2, Calor Volante, Professor, but with Blake Shin. But as we said, we like picking horses with winning form, Professor. So 3 wins from 3 starts will certainly give this horse a chance in Skybird. Then, Professor, going to race 10, horse 2. She Dances, trained by someone that you have very good contact with these days in Peter Moody and Catherine Coleman, and ridden by Linda Meach. She Dances won its last 2 races at Moonee Valley and at Caulfield, over the distance, Professor, of 1,200 metres. So, look, I'm hoping this horse, which has won its last 2, 13 starts for 7 wins, Professor. Fantastic strike rate. I think it can continue its winning way and hopefully continued our ongoing success from the Spring Carnival, Professor. So my 2 are race 7, horse 3, Skybird, into race 10, horse 2, She Dances. And you like, Professor?
Yeah, Gelding, I'm going a little bit earlier than you. First race I've selected in is race 3, the Bravo Damien Oliver. I wonder why it's a Bravo Damien Oliver race today.
Well, the last day of racing in Victoria, Professor, for Ollie. So
he won't be racing in Victoria after this week.
That's my understanding, is that he goes to Perth, and he'll finish riding. His riding career in Perth. So in the Group 1s over there, where of course he originally came from.
Fair enough, Gelding. Well, this is a 1,600 metre race, a benchmark 80 for 3-year-olds and above. I like horse number 10 in this race, Gelding, Mr. Mojo Rising, and I feel my Mojo Rising. Coming out of barrier 6, it's had 12 starts for 2 wins and 4 placings, so a 17% win rate, 50% place rate. Gelding, it won its last start at the Valley in weaker class, but it's carrying 6 kilos more or less. It carried 6 kilos more last start. So
yes,
it gets 6 kilos. I couldn't read my own notes, Gelding.
Very good, Professor.
Gets kicked.
I was going to say, if it was carrying more than 6 kilos more than last start, when it carried 62 kilos to victory. Wow, heavily weighted.
Gelding, if it was running at that, weight, might have had you and I on it.
Oh, mate. Yeah, it certainly would have a broken back then, Professor.
Exactly, Gelding. Well, I like the way this horse finishes its races. The threats are Maracana and the Giraffe's favourite horse, Rhinoceros.
Rhinoceros. Oh, I thought his favourite horse won last week, Professor.
Oh, Foxy Frida.
Yeah.
Very nice, Gelding. We've got Jamie Carr in the saddle. She's back to 16% over her last 50, and that's a terrific increase, Gelding, because remember, she was in single digits a few weeks ago.
Rode very well over the carnival, Professor.
And a former trainer of ours, Gelding, Andrew Forsman.
Well, I was going to ask, Professor, if you had a phone call from Andrew from New Zealand.
We weren't on that good of terms, Gelding.
All right, Professor. I thought he might have given you a quick little phone call just to encourage you when I saw the trainer of your pick.
Yeah. No phone call today, Gelding. And then I like in race 5, the Village Stakes, which is an 1,100 metre race. It's a listed race. You've always known me, Gelding. This is almost an aim and bet for me. Number 4, hypothetical, because you know how I love the hypotheticals.
Oh, Professor, you love a question without notice and a hypothetical. And plus, probably would have been one of your favourite TV shows, wouldn't it?
Oh, yes, Gelding. Yeah, I loved it.
With a gentleman from your profession?
Yes, Gelding.
You're not explaining it to the viewers, Professor.
Well, he might have been a barrister.
He might have been a barrister.
Well, and he still is a barrister.
That's right.
Yes.
And what do barristers like doing, Professor?
They love talking, Gelding.
Yes. And proposing?
Hypotheticals.
Beautiful. Very good, Professor.
Very nice. Oh, Gelding, very nicely led by you in that section of the segment, I think.
Beautiful, Professor. No, I do like your tip, though, Professor.
It's coming out of Barrier 1, Gelding. 15 starts for 5 wins and 7 placings, so a 33% win rate, an 80% place rate. Ran second in the Group 3, Queen of the Ball last start over the same distance, Gelding. It's carrying a kilo more, but it's back in class, so I don't think that's going to affect it too badly. It also ran second in the Alinghi listed race at this course, the race before, Gelding. It's got Michael D in the saddle, who's a very experienced jockey, and It's trained by the Freedmans, Anthony and Sam, who are in scintillating form, Gelding. 16% for their career, 24% if you don't mind over their last 50.
And sitting pretty, Professor, with the Melbourne Cup winner, which we've got to say well done. We hope our listeners back the Melbourne Cup winner without a fight, but certainly glad that we're following up on the Freedmans today, Professor.
Yes, Gelding. And so both of those horses that I've picked are currently showing $3.80 starting price. So there should be some good each way value for punters.
I think it's a meeting today, Professor, and I do like your tips where we would encourage people to back all the horses each way, and we'll be parlaying them for a place bet as well as a win bet. But we'll certainly be looking at, some good value, Professor. And if we continue a similar strike rate to what we've had the last couple of race meetings, we should go quite well.
Exactly, Gelding. So my two are race 3, horse 10, Mr. Mojo Risen, and race 5, horse 4, Everybody Likes a Hypothetical.
Everyone likes a hypothetical. Beautiful, Professor.
All right, Gelding. Now we turn to the very happy story of the Professor's Parlay. Now, Gelding, if I had have said to you, looking into a crystal ball a week and a half ago, that the 3 Professor's Parlays, both win and place, over the Cup Day, Oaks Day and Stakes Day would all get up, what would you have thought about that advice?
I think you might have been dreaming, Professor. Hey? I think you might have been putting up a hypothetical to me.
Well, guess what, Gelding? They all got up.
And, Professor, can you give the odds of what they got up at?
Yes, Gelding. What I can say is this. For a $30 investment over those race days, you returned $117.50.
Oh, Professor, am I keen to catch up with David from Audiolic knowing that?
Well, you might get a chance next week.
Yes. Yes, we'll see what's coming out of that. But, Professor, you've been on fire with the Professor's Parlay, and well done. You did have me worried going to the EPL, and I've got to admit there's a bit of trepidation knowing what's coming in the Professor's Parlay today in the EPL. But you've been in fantastic selection form, Professor, and I do notice that, as we keep saying, the hard leg is the horse leg. Normally if you're betting at 30% with the horse leg, you're normally doing okay. But as you said, you wanted to improve the Professor Parlay, which was sitting at a fine 42%, wasn't it, Professor?
Yes, Gelding.
And what is it up to now?
It's above 60% now, Gelding.
Fantastic, Professor.
We're getting back to that where we were 75% a few weeks ago.
Oh, Professor, when you're at that level with any type of betting, when you have multiple betting, and as I said, most tipping agencies will be happy to be going at a third, 33%. So when we're kind of above that, Professor, it's fantastic for you.
All right, Gelding. Now, I was just thinking, when you mentioned David from Audiolic, you might also be catching up with Darren from Hampton and Apollo Bay, and you might have a couple of questions for him as well.
Well, Professor, I think over the discussion last time over a lovely chili prawn, he did ask whether he should be betting on something, didn't he, in Sydney?
Yes, Gelding.
And I think it won, didn't it?
I think it did.
And after we'd advised him to put a little bit more on it, I don't think we heard from him.
No, I haven't heard from him since, except to accept an invitation.
Yeah, so
maybe the B class tips will have to come out, Gelding.
Maybe you should remind him of this, Professor, before the day.
Oh, I'd much prefer to see his face on the day when you ask him, Gelding. That'd be much more fun.
Oh, it's a beautiful thing, Professor.
All right, today's parlay, Gelding. The agreed bet of the day, race 10, horse 2, She Dances, for all the reasons that you outlined in your summary of that race. And let's parlay that into the NFL. We're using both legs of the NFL this week, Gelding. Miami Dolphins to beat your Las Vegas Raiders. Although the Raiders are coming back into form, Gelding, there's one thing I don't like, and that is that their average points per game score is 17.2. The average points per game score for the Miami Dolphins is 31.
Mm.
So
yes, the Dolphins
two touchdowns better.
Yeah, the Dolphins are a pretty good side this year, Professor.
Yeah, they are. They've won 6 from 9, Gelding. They're 4th in the AFC. As I said, the Raiders coming back, they look like they were going to have a terrible season, but they're back to 50%. They're 5-5 from 10, Gelding, but they're 9th in the AFC, and I think the scoring will have them in trouble. Their lack of ability to score. And the bookies also think that because this is one of the biggest gaps that they've got. 13.5's the line, Gelding.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Almost 2 converted touchdowns.
Well, Professor, your figures tell you that that's a correct figure, isn't it? The Dolphins seem to be a 13 to 14 point higher scoring side than the Raiders. And the Raiders are showing a bit of form, but the Dolphins, I think, will be going fairly deep in the postseason, Professor.
I think so, Gelding, and also the Dolphins playing at home, so that makes them even more dangerous.
Yeah, definitely.
And let's parlay that into the Dallas Cowboys, who are coming off a very good win during the week to beat the Carolina Panthers. Dallas, 5th in the NFC. They've won 6 from 9. They've got the second best defence in the league, Gelding. They're only allowing an average of 18.3 points per game. Carolina Panthers, terrible season. They're bottom in the NFC, only won 1 out of 9. They only score about 17 points per game, Gelding, so Dallas will probably hold them to 17, if not less or fewer. Yep. The big thing is, Gelding, that the Cowboys have got a very good offense. Their average points per game, 29.8. The Panthers are allowing in 26.8. So if you look at that, the line's 10.5. Those two stats tend to tell the story.
Yeah, I like it, Professor. Again, the Cowboys are a very, very strong side. Again, we'll probably go deep into the postseason. And, we've been on them before, once to our regret, but they've also been very good to us before too, Professor. So I like it. I like your tips. And, Professor, I must say, I do like you being in the NFL for both your other tips today, because there was a few heart palpitations going up that after success in the EPL, you might have ventured back there.
Oh, well, the good news for you, Gelding, is that the EPL isn't playing this week. They're international games.
Oh, beautiful. Oh.
Okay, Gelding, the win parlay is showing 3-1, which are very good odds for the 2 legs for the NFL being so short, and the place parlay is showing 3-2.
So if David from Mordioli puts 1 bowl of steamed chili prawns at 3-1, he should return 3 bowls of chili prawns, Professor.
It should, Gelding. It should.
Should we text him that?
Well, yeah, we might do a group chat and advise him that perhaps he should put a chili the cost of
a serve of chili prawns
on the menu.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
All right, Gelding. Well, it's fun as always, and
always.
we can only look forward to what's going to happen at Caulfield today. We've certainly been in good form, Gelding, with the tips, and we've been returning, money on our selections to the viewers. So hopefully they've been enjoying it too.
Professor, hopefully listeners have followed us, and hopefully they've pocketed nice amounts of money, Professor.
All right, Gelding. So until that's racing next week, it's good luck.
And